Over the hills and far away, Teletubbies come to play.
1, 2, 3, 4. Teletubbies!
Each Teletubby has a favourite thing. Tinky Winky has the bag, Dipsy has the hat, La has the ball, and Po has the scooter. The Teletubbies all love their favourite things very much, so it's no surprise that there is an entire home media release devoted to them. That's right, in this episode of the Teletubbies Retrospective, we'll be looking at the fourth home media release, Favourite Things. As we've done 3 times before, we'll first go through some general information surrounding the release. Then I'll summarise favourite things before we analyse the release overall, consider the characters and conclude, as we've always done, with my final thoughts on favourite things. Without further ado, let's begin! According to the community wiki, which is as always linked in the description below, Favourite Things, like nursery rhymes before it, was released on the 2nd of February 1998. There are 8 Teletubbyland segments in Favourite Things, including a magical event and a dance. They come from the following episodes: Josie's Pots, Gymnastics, Bell Ringing, Mark and Zoe Cooking, and Naughty Bee. This release's magical event is the 3 ships. Just like nursery rhymes before it, Favourite Things contains one dance, and here it's the bumping dance, or Bumps a Daisy if you'd prefer. Personally, I don't. Anyway, the bumping dance made its debut in 1997's Numbers 9. This release also contains 2 TV events, which are the following: Paddling Pool and Ned's Bicycle. This latter TV event was the first ever TV event featured in an episode of Teletubbies. Dipsy is chosen to play Paddling Pool, and it is his second TV event in a home media release. Tinky Winky, rather unsurprisingly at this point, is also chosen to play a TV event in Favourite Things, which is Ned's Bicycle. This is his 5th TV event in a home media release. La, once again, is yet to be chosen for a TV event in a home media release. All the episodes featured in Favourite Things aired in 1997. As we've seen before, every episode of Teletubbies contains a missing Teletubby at the start and a boo shouter at the end. The home media releases, as we've heard 3 times before, follow suit. In Favourite Things, our missing Teletubby is Tinky Winky. This is his 2nd time being missing in the opening sequence, and is the only Teletubby at this stage to be the missing Teletubby twice. Our boo shouter for Favourite Things is also Tinky Winky. This is his 1st time shouting boo in a home media release, and this is the 2nd time a Teletubby has both been the missing Teletubby and the boo shouter in a home media release. The first time was in Here Come the Teletubbies, and the missing and shouting Teletubby was Po. La is now the only Teletubby who hasn't been the boo shouter in a home media release. Favourite Things begins with all the Teletubbies lining up with their favourite things. But wait a minute! Laa-Laa hasn't got the ball!
Uh-oh!
And Tinky Winky hasn't got the bag!
Oh dear!
And Dipsy hasn't got the hat!
Uh-oh!
And Po hasn't got the scooter!
Oh dear!
The Teletubbies soon begin frantically searching Teletubbyland for the lost favourite things. Tinky Winky looks between the trees. Dipsy asks the rabbits, and Laa-Laa consults the talking flowers. Last but not least, Po searches the Tubbytronic Superdome. After looking everywhere, all the favourite things are found stuck in the exact same spot, in the exact same tree, at different times. After getting the favourite things down from the tree with surprising ease, the Teletubbies line up with their favourite things. They aren't lined up for very long, as the magic windmill has begun to spin. It is time for the release's first TV event. After watching some children play in their paddling pool, Po goes back to the Tubbytronic Superdome for some Tubby toast. During her meal, she hears a funny noise. This funny noise turns out to be Laa-Laa's ball. Laa-Laa has arrived to play with the ball indoors. She bounces the ball across the house, but at one point doesn't catch it. Soon Laa-Laa is chasing the ball all around the dome. After the ball knocks Po down from the tubby table, bounces past Tinky Winky, and wakes up Dipsy, the other Teletubbies quickly join Laa-Laa in her great chase. Nunu, quite sensibly, waits for the ball to get close enough to him and tidies it up. Rather unsensibly, the Teletubbies declare that Nunu has been naughty, and discipline him by chasing him around the house. Nunu decides that enough is enough, and abruptly cuts the chase short. He spits out the ball, and the Teletubbies realise that Nunu, instead of being naughty, has been good and caught the ball for Laa-Laa. The Teletubbies then celebrate the Nunu by chasing him around the dome again, this time much less angrily. They finally give him a big hug, but they don't get to hug him for very long, because the magic windmill has once again begun to spin. It's time for the magical event. Once they've left the Tubbytronic Superdome, the Teletubbies very calmly watch Teletubbyland flood. Then they watch 3 ocean liners float by and the flood recede quicker than it had arrived. Afterwards, Tinky Winky is out in Teletubbyland and decides to sing a special song into his bag. Just like it would in any bag, try it after you've watched this video, the song stays in the bag, much to Tinky Winky's delight. Soon he asks Dipsy to sing his special song into the bag, and does the same with Po and finally Laa-Laa, who performs a duet with her ball. Tinky Winky just loves having all these songs in his bag, but he gets a bit overexcited, and accidentally throws his bag across Teletubbyland. Quite naturally, this jumbles up all the MP3s in his bag. Thankfully, Tinky Winky thinks this is quite the banger of a tune, and soon all the Teletubbies have congregated and are enjoying the mashup that's coming out of Tinky Winky's bag. Unfortunately, the songs leave the bag, but the Teletubbies have a big hug and everything is alright again. A little while later, it's time for a song all about Dipsy's hat. Dipsy's walking with his hat on, very proudly into view. If you had a hat like that on, you'd be walking proudly too. Dipsy's walking with his hat, far over the hills on a windy day. Watch out, Dipsy, hats like that are liable to blow away. Fancy that! Dipsy's hat has blown away. After catching it again, Dipsy returns to the Tubbytronic Superdome. He doesn't stay indoors for very long, as he soon emerges with the other Teletubbies ready to do the bumping dance. The Teletubbies walk up and down in front of the house and bump into one another quite a lot. Afterwards, they go back into the Tubbytronic Superdome. The Teletubbies are soon back out in Teletubbyland being very busy. Their words, not mine. Tinky Winky is being busy with the bag. Dipsy is being busy with the hat. And Laa-Laa is being busy with the ball. Last but certainly not least, Po is being busy with the scooter. Wait a minute, Po hasn't got the scooter!
Oh dear.
Thankfully, the scooter trundles along just as everyone starts getting worried. Po rides off quickly, but is soon stopped by the magic windmill. It's begun to spin again! The Teletubbies all have to stop what they're doing immediately, as it's time for the final TV event. The Teletubbies are soon watching a young boy named Ned and his father inspect their bicycle. After Ned waves away the audience, the Teletubbies are all coming down the path with their favourite things. Tinky Winky has his bag, Dipsy has his hat, and Laa-Laa has her ball. Po arrives on the scene from the side, and, just like earlier, she's lost the scooter. Thankfully, the scooter was entering the scene in the same way as everyone else did a moment ago, and soon Po and her scooter are reunited. Po is soon riding her scooter very quickly. She rides her scooter along the top, around the Tubbytronic Superdome on the inside, and around the Tubbytronic Superdome on the outside. Po is speeding through Teletubbyland, much to the horror of the talking flowers. Tinky Winky, Dipsy and Laa-Laa try to outrun the red Teletubby, but they soon collapse into a heap in front of the house. Po, not wanting to feel left out, collapses into a heap right alongside the others. The Teletubbies all recover quickly and share a big hug. This of course brings us to Tubby Bye Bye and the end of Favourite Things. Favourite Things is undeniably centred around the favourite things, and the release's aim is to showcase to the audience both what the Teletubbies make it up to on an average day with their favourite things, and how much the Teletubbies love their favourite things. I think Favourite Things as a release excels in meeting these aims, and we'll see how here as well as in the character sections soon. To start with, the segment centred around Tinky Winky's bag, which is of course Songs in Tinky Winky's Bag, is a rather slow-paced segment involving Tinky Winky walking around Teletubbyland putting things into his bag. Funnily enough, when we looked at Here Come the Teletubbies in the first episode of this series, we noted that this was how Here Come the Teletubbies introduced the favourite things as a concept to the audience in the Tinky Winky's Heavy Bag segment. Most segments revolving around Tinky Winky and his bag follow this formula of him either going on a walk with his bag, or him going for a walk and putting things in his bag. For example, 1997's Drawing Cacti features Tinky Winky going out for a walk with his bag. Considering Tinky Winky putting things in his bag, we see this occur in 1999's Catching Leaves, when he packs away everyone's tubby toast into his bag. In 2000's Scrapbook, we see him pack Dipsy's hat into his bag, and then Nunu tidies up Tinky Winky's bag with the hat still inside. Finally, in 2001's Picking Chili's Spain, Tinky Winky packs an awful lot of tubby toast into his bag and goes out into Teletubbyland in search of the other Teletubbies. This latter segment also features in the final UK home media release, Naughty Nunu, which we'll look at eventually. Moving on to the segment centred around Dipsy's hat, which is of course Dipsy's fancy hat. This is a shorter segment involving Dipsy going for a walk with his hat very proudly. The segment even involves decorations on the hat and it blowing away at one point. Here Come the Teletubbies of course covers everything outside of the decorations in the Where's Dipsy's Hat segment. Dipsy goes on frequent walks with his hat, such as in 1997's Our Pig Winnie and 1997's Numbers 3 version 1. Dipsy's hat has also been decorated a few times, such as in 1997's Strawberry Picking where Dipsy receives a present which turns out to be a decoration for the hat, and in 1997's Christening, where a magic cloud rains some special magic flowers onto the hat. Dipsy's a bit less excited about this decoration though, but more on this when we look at Big Hug. Finally, Dipsy's hat frequently blows away. As I said a moment ago, we saw this happen in Here Come the Teletubbies during the Where's Dipsy's Hat segment, but it happens in other episodes. For example, 1998's Naughty Pig involves the wind persistently blowing Dipsy's hat off of his head. Additionally, 1998's Boys and Eggs involves the wind blowing Dipsy's hat all the way back to the Tubbytronic Superdome. The segment centred around Lala's ball, which is of course Lala's very bouncy ball, involves Lala bouncing her ball in the house and having to catch it because it is bouncing out of control. At the start of this segment, Lala is throwing and catching her ball, which again is something we see her do in episodes of the show itself. We see it earlier in, of course, Here Come the Teletubbies, when she is playing catch with Po during Po's falling down day. In episodes, we see the ball bouncing out of control in 1997's Helicopter, when it gets stuck in a tree, and also in 2000's Sleepover, when Lala has to chase after the ball after desperately trying to sleep with it in her bed. We'll look at this latter example more when we look at Busy Day in the hopefully near future. Lala also throws and catches her ball a lot in episodes too, including 1997's Bubbles, where Lala throws and catches her shape-changing ball, as well as in 1997's Carnival, where she throws the ball and catches it after it goes all over Teletubbyland. A final example of this is 2000's 10-pin bowling, where Lala throws her ball, knocks over the other Teletubbies, and catches it again. Last but certainly not least, the second segment centred around Po's scooter, which is Po's fast scooter, quite naturally involves Po riding her scooter very fast. Once again, we see this in Here Come the Teletubbies, via the Where's Dipsy's Hat segment, when Po is careening across Teletubbyland after Dipsy's hat lands on her head. She does this very frequently in episodes, so I'm only going to give 3 examples. 1997's Haymaking involves Po chasing Nunu down with her scooter after none of the Teletubbies can keep up with him on foot. 1998's My Dad's a Tram Driver involves Po going very fast on her scooter and causing trouble for the other Teletubbies. Finally, 2001's Rickshaw involves Po going so fast on her scooter that she begins to fly. We'll see more examples of Po going very fast on her scooter in later episodes of this series, most notably in Teletubbies and the Snow and Blue Sky, when we look at them in their dedicated episodes. Moving on from how the segments showcase the uses of the favourite things in episodes, I want to talk about the structure of favourite things as a release. Overall, I really like how the opening segment, Tubbies Looking Everywhere, serves as a reminder of who has which favourite thing. And then, like the introduction of any good piece of academic writing, each favourite thing is covered in the order they were missing in Tubbies Looking Everywhere. Lala's ball was missing first, so the first Teletubbyland segment after this one centres around Lala's ball, and Tinky Winky's bag was the second, so that got the second Teletubbyland segment, and so on and so forth. In the episodes on Dance with the Teletubbies and Nursery Rhymes, I gushed about the editing around the Magic Windmill and the pacing of segments in the release, and I want to go into detail on how it is in Favourite Things. Regarding the editing in Favourite Things, this release does not edit around the Magic Windmill in the same way as all the home media releases have so far. Every segment that originally ended with the windmill spinning, such as Tubbies Looking Everywhere, Lala's Very Bouncy Ball, and Where's Poe's Scooter, continues to end with the windmill spinning, though the purpose is changed for Favourite Things twice. To elaborate, both Tubbies Looking Everywhere and Lala's Very Bouncy Ball originally end with the windmill stopping. For Favourite Things, they became the transition into a TV event and a magical event, respectively. I'd also like to express how much I love the segue from the end of Dipsy's fancy hat into the bumping dance. In Favourite Things, right after Dipsy returns to the Tubbytronic Superdome, the Teletubbies emerge and begin the bumping dance immediately after. Something similar has occurred in an episode for the bumping dance before this, specifically in 1997's Feeding the Sheep in Winter, when the Teletubbies conclude that they would all like to go outside and play, and this play takes the form of the bumping dance. Overall, I really like this seamless transition of Dipsy entering the house and leaving again to do the bumping dance, and I would go so far as to argue that it's as seamless, if not more so, than my all-time favourite transition from Dance with the Teletubbies, which was the cloud into the splashing dance. There is one final interesting piece of editing that I want to talk about here, and that's the transition from the end of the Ned's Bicycle TV event into Poe's Fast Scooter. Essentially, the opening shot into Poe's Fast Scooter is an amalgamation of the opening shot from The Flag from 1997's Ned's Bicycle, and some B-roll of the rabbits. We saw in the previous episode how Nursery Rhymes used B-roll of the rabbits to transition into segments in the gap before Little Miss Muffet, and ticking voice trumpets. Speaking of the TV events, as we just sort of did, apologies, I couldn't think of a better segue, I want to devote some time to talking about the TV events. To begin with, I want to go over why the TV events chosen was such a brilliant choice for Favourite Things as a release. This is largely because they complement the Teletubbyland segments that follow them. Paddling Pool contains an orange ball in the paddling pool, and the segment immediately after it is about Lala's ball. Similarly, Ned's Bicycle is about a bicycle, which is adjacent enough from a scooter if you squint and nod along politely, and the segment that immediately follows that is about Poe's scooter. Now that we've gone over the TV events overall, I want to look at Ned's Bicycle in more detail. As I mentioned earlier in this episode, Ned's Bicycle was the first ever TV event to appear in an episode of the Teletubbies. I know I've already explained why it is likely in Favourite Things, but I wonder if it being the first TV event aired for the show had something to do with its inclusion in a home media release. The Teletubbies home media releases are no stranger to this reasoning for including a segment. For starters, Here Come the Teletubbies features both the first narrated segment that aired, which was of course Time for Tubby Toast, and the very first segment filmed for Teletubbies, which was Watering Can, as described by Nikki Smedley in her book on her experience as Lala. Dance with the Teletubbies also opens with the Stamping and Stepping dance, which Smedley mentions in her book as being the first dance filmed for the series. Finally, the UK version of nursery rhymes opens with the Grand Old Duke of York, which was of course both the first explicit nursery rhymes segment and the first voice trumpet segment that aired in the series. With all of this in mind, I think it's safe to say that the status Ned's Bicycle has as the first TV event in Teletubbies may have been a deciding factor in its presence in Favourite Things. Though of course, don't take my word here as fact, I am merely speculating. I am going to conclude our overall analysis on Favourite Things by, as always, discussing the differences between the US version of the release and the UK version of the release. The US version of Favourite Things keeps everything in the exact same order as the UK version. No segments are removed like we saw in Here Come the Teletubbies, and no segments swap places with other segments like we saw in nursery rhymes. There is, however, just as we saw in Dance with the Teletubbies, a change in one of the narrator's lines. In the UK dub of Dipsy's Fancy Hat, the narrator warns Dipsy to be careful because hats like that are liable to blow away.
Watch out, Dipsy. Hats like that are liable to blow away.
Uh-oh.
In the US dub, however, this is changed to hats like that are likely to blow away.
Watch out, Dipsy. Hats like that are likely to blow away.
Uh-oh.
This line change may have occurred due to a concern that American children wouldn't have understood liable as a word. This isn't the first time we see language changed across the pond for Teletubbies. For example, in the next episode of the Teletubbies Retrospective, we'll see how uh-oh messes and muddles became funny day in the United States. Additionally, as pointed out to me by my dear friend Benzo during our rewatch of Favourite Things prior to me writing the script for this episode of the Retrospective, the US version of Ned's Bicycle adds a young child saying, "Bye Ned," over the end of the TV event.
Bye, Ned.
This might have been done as a way of making the fact that the TV event was ending clearer to the child audience. Finally, and rather bafflingly, the US version of Favourite Things does not contain end credits. The Tubby Bye Bye sequence plays out as it would in any other episode or home media release. It's just that, unlike its UK counterpart, the end credits apparently didn't make it across the pond. I genuinely have no idea how this happened, and I'm admittedly only mentioning it now because of the absurdity of the absence of end credits. We've talked enough now about messes, muddles, Ned, and Americans for one episode. So let's move on to looking at what the characters got up to in Favourite Things. This final section of this episode's main body is, as before, focused on the characters. More specifically, we'll look at if segments were led by the Teletubbies as a group, what the Teletubbies did individually, and how the Nunu and the Talking Flowers were used. This episode of the Retrospective will not delve into the voice trumpets, as they simply don't appear in any segments in Favourite Things. In fact, it appears that they've been benched after nursery rhymes. To start with, let's look at who led what. Tinky Winky leads one segment, which is of course songs in Tinky Winky's bag. Both Dipsy and Lala also lead one segment each, and these segments are Dipsy's Fancy Hat and Lala's Very Bouncy Ball, respectively. Po manages to lead 2 segments in this release: Where's Po's Scooter and Po's Fast Scooter. The first segment, Tubbies Looking Everywhere, is an ensemble segment and is led by all the Teletubbies as a group. All the segments in Favourite Things contain all the Teletubbies, with the notable exception of Dipsy's Fancy Hat, which only contains Dipsy. Only Lala seems to stand out compared to the other Teletubbies in segments outside of her lead segment. We'll talk more about her towards the end of our character analysis on the Teletubbies themselves. For now, however, I want to discuss how each Teletubbies leading segment reflects them as a character, starting with Tinky Winky. As I said earlier, Tinky Winky leads songs in Tinky Winky's bag. As I also said earlier, this is a much slower slice of life sort of segment, and largely involves Tinky Winky simply strolling through Teletubbyland collecting his friends' songs for his bag. On the community wiki, Tinky Winky's character is described as that of a gentle giant, with a lot of energy and a clumsy streak. On his own, you'd be more likely to see Tinky Winky doing something like stopping to smell a beautiful flower, or sitting with the rabbits. Or perhaps he'd do a little dance. Tinky Winky comes out of his shell when he's with the other Teletubbies, and this is especially the case for when he's with Po. You'd also very possibly see him fall over, do a little star jump, or anything to get rid of some of that excess energy. Let's circle back to songs in Tinky Winky's bag. Tinky Winky spends most of the segment going for a walk around Teletubbyland and collecting songs from the other Teletubbies. This is arguably the slowest segment in the release, and I think this reflects Tinky Winky as a character in that regard due to his slightly more laid-back nature. As we saw in the overall analysis of Favourite Things, most of the segments involving both Tinky Winky's bag and Tinky Winky going for a walk, such as that in 1997's Drawing Cacti, are paced much slower compared to other segments in this release, such as, say, Lala's Very Bouncy Ball or Po's Fast Scooter. A moment ago, I described Tinky Winky as also being energetic with something of a clumsy streak. In songs in Tinky Winky's bag, this is evidenced by how excited he gets when, at first, he sings a special song into his bag, when he walks off to find someone to show the special song in his bag, and when he walks over the hill singing the special song that he sung into his bag. Tinky Winky's clumsy streak is reflected in songs in Tinky Winky's bag too, when Tinky Winky gets so excited about the song in his bag that he accidentally throws his bag all the way to the front of the Tubbytronic Superdome. Tinky Winky's clumsiness is also evident in the bumping dance, when he falls over after Po bumps into him at the end of the dance. Overall, I'd argue that Songs in Tinky Winky's Bag is an excellent summary of Tinky Winky as a character, as it gives us a well-rounded portrayal of Tinky Winky while also showing us how much Tinky Winky loves his bag. Compared to the other Teletubbies, the guy takes his bag everywhere. It appears frequently without mention, such as in the walking dance and the falling down dance, as well as in the opening segments from episodes such as in 1997's Lambs, 1997's Playing in the Rain in a rather blink and you'll miss it sort of way, and to name but one more, 1997's Swimming with Stephanie. None of the other Teletubbies have their favourite things on their person consistently outside of the main plot to the same extent as Tinky Winky, which shows how much Tinky Winky loves his bag. Let's move on to Dipsy. As I said a short while ago, Dipsy leads Dipsy's Fancy Hat. In this segment, Dipsy goes for a walk around Teletubbyland in a very proud manner. Though, to be fair, if I had a hat like that on, I'd be walking proudly too. According to the community wiki, Dipsy has a very cool personality, and can be very energetic when dancing. He can also be rather stubborn, but as this doesn't really show in Dipsy's fancy hat, we won't dive deeper into this aspect of his character. Dipsy's cool personality and love of dance has a strong presence in Dipsy's fancy hat. As I mentioned scarcely a minute ago, Dipsy is walking very proudly throughout Teletubbyland, suggesting he feels and knows how cool he is while he's walking with his hat on. Moreover, in the section where decorations appear on Dipsy's hat, he pauses his walk for a dance break while his hat gets progressively more fabulous. Dipsy consistently dances with his hat on. He dances excitedly when he gets it back in 1997's The Beach, and in 1997's Numbers 3 version 1 when he finally reaches the top of the hill. To conclude this tangent on Dipsy, we see how much he loves his hat based on his desperation after it blows away. And once Dipsy retrieves it, he holds onto it until he is nearly back at the Tubbytronic Superdome. Let's move on to Laa-Laa.
Uh-oh.
As I mentioned previously, Laa-Laa leads Laa-Laa's very bouncy ball. In this segment, Laa-Laa is playing with her ball indoors, and hilarity ensues when she fails to catch the ball and it begins to bounce out of control around the house. According to the community wiki, Laa-Laa is a very bubbly Teletubby who enjoys playing games, and I think this is reflected well in Laa-Laa's very bouncy ball. While there is some sense of urgency in trying to catch the very bouncy ball, Laa-Laa is giggling throughout the chase, until Nunu, very naughtily, in the eyes of the Teletubbies at least, tidies up the ball. Laa-Laa and the Teletubbies overall giggling at problems like the one presented in Laa-Laa's very bouncy ball is a common occurrence in Teletubbies, and we'll see more of it when we look at the Tubby Custard Cloud in Uh-Oh! Messes and Muddles in the next episode of the Retrospective. The DVD featurette Understanding Teletubbies mentions how every segment in Teletubbies is a game, and gives the example of Tinky Winky looking for Po from Looking for Rabbits. In the case of Laa-Laa's very bouncy ball, the game is to catch the bouncy ball. Understanding Teletubbies also mentions how the Teletubbies always have a good time, so while things might go wrong, such as the favourite things going missing or the songs disappearing from Tinky Winky's bag, everything will turn out alright in the end, which is of course reflected throughout the release, and especially in Laa-Laa's very bouncy ball, when Nunu catches the ball and gives it back to Laa-Laa. Laa-Laa's relief at having the ball back here also helps illustrate to the audience how much Laa-Laa loves her ball. The final Teletubby we're going to look at in this first main tangent is, quite unsurprisingly, Po. As previously stated, Po leads two segments in Favourite Things: Where's Po's Scooter? And Po's Fast Scooter. Both of these segments strongly reflect Po's character. As a reminder, the community wiki describes Po as a silly Teletubby who enjoys playing games. When we looked at Dance with the Teletubbies and nursery rhymes previously, we also saw how Po sometimes chooses to do her own thing outside of what the other Teletubbies are getting up to. Po's silliness comes across in how she's managed to lose her scooter twice, especially considering how busy everyone else is being with their favourite things. We also see Po do her own thing in these two segments. In Where's Po's Scooter, Po is the only Teletubby not being very busy with her favourite thing. Then, in Po's Fast Scooter, instead of entering the scene along the path like all the other Teletubbies and also her scooter, Po enters the scene from the side, which may actually be how she lost her scooter in the first place. We also see Po's love of games reflected in these two segments, as she plays her favourite game of all, riding the scooter. The scooter is also in fact the first favourite thing we see, all the way back in 1997's Ned's Bicycle, when she rides it into view at the beginning of The Flag. Po easily has the most love for her favourite thing out of all the Teletubbies. For example, in 1997's Dad's Lorry, she stops walking with Dipsy in favour of playing with her scooter. And in 1997's Naughty Horse, she decides to give Lala's ball back when she spots her scooter. We've talked a lot about the Teletubbies individually and how much they all love their favourite things, and how Favourite Things as a release showcases that in each Teletubbies individual segment. But I also want to go through how this is evidenced in Tubbies Looking Everywhere, which is the segment designed to remind the audience of who has which favourite thing. When I rewatched Favourite Things ahead of writing this episode's script with my dear friend Benzo, he pointed out Dipsy's pathetic little whimper while he despairs at the loss of his hat. This then got me thinking about how all the Teletubbies fall into a sense of despair when they lose their favourite things. To start with, Lala looks around desperately. Then Tinky Winky desperately says, "Oh dear."
Winky bag! Oh dear, oh dear.
Dipsy whimpers like we just saw, and sadly sings hat, where hat, hat, hat.
Hat, where hat, hat, where hat, hat, where hat, hat.
Last but not least, Po sadly mimes riding her scooter before giving up. The despair we see the Teletubbies experience at the loss of their favourite things showcases to the audience how important their favourite things are to the Teletubbies. The Teletubbies simply would not be the Teletubbies without their favourite things. While we're still on the subject of Tubbies Looking Everywhere, I want to talk about the Citrus Posse and the Forest Fruits. To recap, the Citrus Posse is the duo comprising of Dipsy and Lala, and the Forest Fruits is the duo comprising of Tinky Winky and Po. The names of the duos come from Lala actress Nikki Smedley. In the last episode of the Teletubbies Retrospective, we saw how nursery rhymes gave each duo a lead segment, and some smaller moments across the release. In Favourite Things, the duos don't co-lead segments together, though there are some smaller moments in this release. These are predominantly in Tubbies Looking Everywhere. In short, when a Teletubby's favourite thing is found up in the tree, the corresponding member of their duo is the one who finds it. So, for example, Dipsy is the one who finds the ball and reunites it with Lala, and so on for the other Teletubbies. I really like the explicit use of the Citrus Posse and the Forest Fruits here, as they really could have had any Teletubby find any of the favourite things. But they chose to continue to reinforce the duos that Nursery Rhymes was starting to flesh out. We also see the Citrus Posse and the Forest Fruits in action during the bumping dance. Though less notable than the characterisation in Tubbies Looking Everywhere, during part of the dance, the Teletubbies split into pairs in these respective duos, which again serves to reinforce the concept of the Citrus Posse and the Forest Fruits to the audience. In Nursery Rhymes, we also saw an alternative set of Tubby duos comprising of Tinky Winky and Dipsy as one duo, and Lala and Po as another. Tinky Winky and Dipsy once again don't do anything interesting as a duo in Favourite Things, though Lala and Po have a moment in Where's Po's Scooter. In this segment, Lala is just as shocked and dismayed when the scooter is realised to be missing as Po is, and is also just as excited as Po when the scooter reveals itself. This smaller moment helps reinforce to the audience the closeness between Lala and Po that we were beginning to see fleshed out in Nursery Rhymes. Before moving on to Nunu and the Talking Flowers, I want to talk about Lala again.
Uh-oh.
As I said earlier, I think she is the only Teletubby who stands out in favourite things outside of her lead segment. First of all, in Songs in Tinky Winky's Bag, Lala is the only Teletubby to pause before thinking of her special song for Tinky Winky's Bag. Additionally, Lala is the only Teletubby to make her song a duet with her favourite thing. Lala loves to sing, especially for the other Teletubbies. For example, in 1997's Rocking Chair, we see her get incredibly excited at the prospect of singing a lovely song to Dipsy and Po. And in 2001's Our Story, she is thrilled by the prospect of singing about her musical walk to Tinky Winky, Dipsy and Po. Lala also introduces us to something new in the home media releases, that I'm sure more than a few of you have been waiting for me to mention. I'll let Lala say what I'm referring to. Bibbly cheese is the closest thing the Teletubbies have to a swear word, and it is exclusively used by Lala. Like how we would use swears, Lala may sometimes use it in astonishment, such as how she did in 1997's Throwing, when Po manages to throw the ball all the way over Lala and into the unsuspecting Dipsy. She also says the phrase in an astonished way in 1997's Bubbles, when her ball returns to her in the shape of a cube. That's not the shape a ball should be. Predominantly, however, Lala says bibbly cheese when she's frustrated. Outside of how she uses the phrase in Tubby's Looking Everywhere, she expresses her frustration at a voice trumpet in 1997's Emily and Jester.
Stand up, sit down, 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 stand up, sit down.
This is also the first time she uses this iconic phrase. Another notable example of Lala exclaiming "bibbly cheese" in a frustrated way includes 1997's The Helicopter, when her ball gets stuck up a tree and she cannot reach it on her own. This is also the same tree that the ball is lost in Tubby's Looking Everywhere. If I had a nickel for every time Lala's ball got stuck up this specific tree, I'd have 2 nickels. Which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice. 2 final examples of Lala angrily exclaiming bibbly cheese are in 1997's Rocking Chair, when she is perturbed by Tinky Winky's loud tubby toast crunching, and in 2000's Sleepover, when she simply cannot get the ball into bed with her, and not with lack of trying. The fact that the Teletubbies have their own self-made curse word is funny enough on its own, but the fact Lala of all characters is the one who says it makes bibbly cheese hilarious. Incongruity is the idea of something being out of place. Incongruity becomes funny when we expect something to occur one way and it occurs in another. So, the Teletubbies, these happy-go-lucky, polite, kind creatures, on their own having their own contextual swear is funny. Lala, the happiest, bubbliest, kindest Teletubby, being the only Teletubby to consistently use bibbly cheese, then elevates it to being hilarious. I think the home media releases not using a segment containing the phrase before this, thereby giving the audience the established view of Lala is the kindest, happiest Teletubby. She would never come out with something that is designed to be construed as a swear, gives bibbly cheese a comedic contrast. The show does something similar. Lala doesn't say bibbly cheese until the 15th episode of the show, and by then Lala has already been established in the ways I've just described. To conclude this tangent, Bibbly Cheese showcases to the audience a new side of Laa-Laa, and her frustration at the loss of her favourite thing helps reinforce to the audience how much Laa-Laa, and the other Teletubbies to an extent, love their favourite things. Let's now move on to talking about Nunu. Nunu only appears in one segment in Favourite Things, which is Laa-Laa's Very Bouncy Ball. In this segment, Nunu watches the unfolding chaos that is the Teletubbies trying to catch Laa-Laa's very bouncy ball. Then, he decides to step in and tidy up the ball himself. The Teletubbies think he's been naughty, and chase him round the Tubbytronic Superdome, before Nunu halts them, spits out the ball, and the Teletubbies realise he'd done what they'd been unable to do. The Nunu caught the ball. The Teletubbies then decide to reward the Nunu with a big hug. Nunu decides he really doesn't want that, and the chase starts up again. Finally, the Teletubbies give Nunu the big hug. While Nunu only appears in one segment, this one segment gives us a lot of new character information for him that the other home media releases haven't touched upon. His naughty side, his parental/authoritative side, and finally, his mixed views on big hugs. Let's start by looking at his naughty side. Nunu's naughty side is one of the most iconic aspects of his character. There's a reason why the home media release all about Nunu is called Naughty Nunu, and this is the first time he's been naughty in a home media release. A quick fun fact: according to Nikki Smedley in her book on her experience of being Laa-Laa, when filming the initial Naughty Nunu chase sequence, they filmed the chase at full speed. Needless to say, this was deemed impractical and tiring, so Andrew Davenport concluded that it'd be easier to speed up the footage for the chase sequences. Why he didn't come to that conclusion initially is beyond me. Anyway, Nunu's more nefarious side came out initially in the show's 32nd episode, 1997's Yellow Cow, when he selfishly tidied up the extra piece of tubby toast. He is next naughty in the very next episode, 1997's My Mum's Keyboard, when he tidies up Dipsy's tubby toast while the green Teletubby was busy making adjustments. Nunu is intermittently naughty after these two episodes, and his most recent bout of naughtiness, as in before Favourite Things released, was in 1998's Numbers 2 version 2, when he tidies up Dipsy and Laa-Laa's tubby toast while they're acting out the nursery rhyme Two Little Dicky Birds. He is of course chased by Dipsy and Laa-Laa, and then Tinky Winky and Po as well. We'll see more of Nunu being naughty in releases such as Happy Christmas from the Teletubbies, Busy Day, and of course, Naughty Nunu. Circling back to Laa-Laa's Very Bouncy Ball, I think this was a good introduction to Nunu's naughty nature, as he still manages to be sympathetic to the child audience. To elaborate, sometimes when Nunu is naughty, he is truly naughty. For example, in 1997's Haymaking, he tidies up the favourite things with minimal provocation, and then purposefully avoids the Teletubbies' attempts at disciplining him. Other times, however, Nunu's naughtiness isn't really all that naughty, such as in 1997's Yellow Cow, where realistically the fifth piece of tubby toast would have gone to him anyway. He just probably shouldn't have taken the choice out of the Teletubbies' hands. This more sympathetic side of Nunu's naughtiness, as I said but a moment ago, comes out in Laa-Laa's Very Bouncy Ball. This is because even before the narrator explains to the audience that the Nunu caught the ball, it is clear that Nunu was only trying to help Laa-Laa. You can even argue that Nunu was trying to spit the ball out again before the Teletubbies jumped down his trunk and called him naughty. This idea of Nunu trying to help Laa-Laa links nicely with my argument that we see Nunu's more caring parental side come into play. In La La's Very Bouncy Ball, after watching the Teletubbies struggle in vain to catch the very bouncy ball, Nunu steps in and tidies up the ball as it bounces towards him, effectively catching the ball for La La. Nunu intervenes like this in a few episodes. For example, in 1997's Music with Debbie, he trundles up to La La and cheers her up by singing with her. Additionally, in 1998's Naughty Soap, he gives Po her tubby wash after tidying up her tubby sponge. Finally, in 2000's Scrapbook, Nunu gives Tinky Winky a taste of his own medicine, and tidies up the bag after Tinky Winky put Dipsy's hat into the bag and refused to give it back. I think Nunu's role as an adult, caring presence for the Teletubbies is an excellent use of the character. For one, he teaches the audience, and the Teletubbies to an extent, lessons that the narrator wouldn't be able to teach. Moreover, his position as guy who sits in the corner and reassures the parents watching that he doesn't know what they're doing either, leaves him in a unique position where he is more open to acting unprompted. For example, in 1997's Music with Debbie, the narrator doesn't introduce Nunu singing with La La. He does that on his own. The case is the same in Favourite Things. Nunu isn't prompted to intervene and catch the ball by the narrator. He just does it. This really bolsters Nunu's position as the only secondary Teletubbyland character that can properly lead segments. Let's conclude our tangent on Nunu by discussing his mixed views on big hugs. In La La's Very Bouncy Ball, at the prospect of the Teletubbies giving him a congratulatory big hug, Nunu resumes the chase, though he does finally relent and let the Teletubbies fawn over him. Nunu, while occasionally playful, is more often than not content to just watch the goings-on in the Tubbytronic Superdome from a corner. In La La's Very Bouncy Ball, for example, he was happy to do just that, until it became clear that the Teletubbies were never going to catch the bouncy ball on their own. Nunu intervenes in segments like this a lot, such as in 1998's Squeezy Painting, where he trundles over to tidy up Dipsy's tubby custard accident. We'll see more of this segment when we look at Naughty Nunu at some point. I mention Squeezy Painting now because the segment in the episode that I'm talking about culminates in the Teletubbies chasing Nunu in their bibs, as they are so grateful for him tidying up the tubby custard and want to give him a big hug. Circling back to La La's Very Bouncy Ball, the Teletubbies are once again full of gratitude for the Nunu, and the Nunu does not entirely want to receive it, so the chase resumes. Of course, Nunu has gladly accepted affection from the Teletubbies in the past without fuss. In 1997's Swimming with Stephanie, he accepts a pat on the trunk from La La, and in 1998's Colours Pink, he accepts a big hug from Tinky Winky, La La and Po without objection. To conclude this definitely lengthy tangent on Nunu, I think his mixed views on big hugs makes for a fun contrast between him and the Teletubbies themselves. You'd rarely see a Teletubby run away from a big hug. Unless the Teletubby is Po and she's having a naughty day, but she's always been an outlier. As this series has always been known to do, our character analysis of Favourite Things will conclude with a look at the Talking Flowers. The Talking Flowers appear in two segments in Favourite Things: Tubby's Looking Everywhere, and Po's Fast Scooter. Let's look at their appearance in Tubby's Looking Everywhere first. In this segment, the Talking Flowers are consulted by La La to see if they know where the Favourite Things are, starting with Tinky Winky's bag, then Dipsy's hat, and finally Po's scooter. The talking flowers are cordial when asked about the bag and the hat, but when asked about the scooter, they show a new side of themselves that we haven't seen in the home media releases yet. Their thorny side. Of course, we know this is something that has come up countless times in episodes. For example, in 1997's Naughty Sock, which coincidentally is the first time we hear the talking flowers speak, the flowers relish in the peace now that all the Teletubbies are fast asleep.
Peace, peace, peace at last.
Circling back to Tubbies looking everywhere, when asked of the whereabouts of Poe's scooter, the talking flowers scoff and declare that they don't even like scooters. Even Lala thinks they're being snobbish. This disdain of the scooter is a consistent trait for the talking flowers across favourite things. In Poe's fast scooter, before Tinky Winky, Dipsy and Lala run away from Poe and her high-speed scooter, the talking flowers are terrified of Poe and her fast scooter. I think it's brilliant that the talking flowers are finally showing some bite in the home media releases, as it's something they're definitely famous for within episodes of the show, as we've seen in the multiple examples I've given across the retrospective so far. To conclude our character analysis for favourite things, and the main body of this episode, here is a compilation of everything said by the talking flowers in favourite things.
Tinky Winky bag. Bag. Hat. Dipsy hat. Oh, I say, there's no hat here. How? Good job. Good job. We don't even like scooters. Mama. Oh no, the scooter's coming.
Well, would you look at that? After what I'm sure is another very lengthy episode, we've successfully discussed favourite things in great detail. We've looked at it in the context of what it aimed to do and how it was achieved, as well as what the Teletubbies themselves got up to, alongside how Nunu and the talking flowers were used. As we saw in the overall analysis of favourite things, the overall theme was, of course, the favourite things, and the aim was to show what the Teletubbies may get up to on an average day with their favourite things. As I've shown across the two previous sections, Favourite Things does these both brilliantly, as every Teletubbies lead segment gives us the rundown of what the Teletubbies do with their favourite things. For example, Poe typically goes very fast on her scooter, so in one of her lead segments in Favourite Things, she goes very fast on her scooter. Just as I've done before, I'm going to say what I think was the best segment in Favourite Things. In my opinion, The best segment in Favourite Things is undeniably Dipsy's fancy hat. Yes, this is because of the album. Anyway, Dipsy's energy is infectious in Dipsy's fancy hat, through his proud walking over the hills, his dance break while his hat gets decorated all the way back to his victorious toss of the hat up the slide when he returns to the Tubbytronic Superdome. Also, its appearance on the album just really elevates it for me. Like, this is such a banger. Of course, if you have a same or different favourite segment from Favourite Things, I'd love to hear about it in the comment section below. The only thing I'd change about Favourite Things is the final stretch of segments from the bumping dance. In short, I think the bumping dance should segue into the final TV event, as it has done in episodes such as in 1998's Decorating Boxes. I think that after Ned's bicycle, Poe's fast scooter could be swapped out with the narrated segment from 1997's Haymaking. This would keep the full circle, all the favourite things together in the first and last segment that was in the original home media release, while also giving both spotlight to how fast Poe's scooter is and introducing that new aspect of Nunu's naughtiness. Or perhaps you could swap out Where's Poe's Scooter with Poe, Poe, Fast and Slow from 1997's Emily and the Trap. Both end with the windmill spinning, so the segue into the final TV event would remain intact. Then, after Ned's bicycle, you could have the segment from 1997's Haymaking, for the reasons I described but a moment ago. Just as I was when I was considering potential segment swaps for nursery rhymes, I am merely spitballing ideas for favourite things. If any of you lovely viewers have any ideas to changes you'd make to favourite things, I'd love to hear them in the comment section below. I mainly considered Haymaking's narrated segment as it would give some more spotlight to Nunu. Fortunately, we'll see a lot more of him in home media when we look at Uh-oh Messes and Muddles in the next episode. Speaking of Uh-oh Messes and Muddles,
Time for Tubby bye-bye. Time for Tubby bye-bye. Time for Tubby bye-bye.
Well, would you look at that? We've run out of time. I'd like to sincerely thank you all for watching, because the sun is setting in the sky, and it is time for the Teletubbies to say goodbye.
Bye-bye.
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 Bye-bye.